Hello fellow Unreal Engine artists, designers and developers. In today's episode we'll look at adding override materials to our spline wall so that we can have separate materials for our staircase, sidewalls and roof. Let's get straight into it. After the last two mammoth tutorials, this one thankfully is going to be a nice short one, and we're just going to add material parameters to our spline wall so that we can override the materials on the staircase, stair walls and the roof. So let's start off with the spline wall. Go into the content browser, open up the spline wall, and let's add all the parameters that we will need. So go over to your variables, open up the staircase section, and we'll start off by adding the parameters for the staircase. So what I'll do is I'll create a new, just duplicate any of these ones, doesn't really matter. Let's do the staircase transform, duplicate it, and I'm going to call this one staircase override material. And the type of this is going to be, do type material, and you just want a material object reference there, and we'll put that just after the staircase UV scale. And we want another couple of override materials now as well, so let's duplicate this twice, and the first one we'll call sidewalls override material. And then this one here we'll call roof override material. And actually make sure that the you've taken the number off the end of the name. Okay, so we now have our three materials. The sidewall, the roof override material is in the wrong section. We actually want that in with the roof. So if you just drag that up to roof, and you'll see that it appears here. Let's put it underneath the roof UV scale. So you've got UV scale and material. When you compile these will be empty, but that's fine. We want them to be empty unless you decide to override. So we've got roof override material. We've got staircase override material after staircase UV scale. When we did the sidewalls, we didn't actually provide a UV scale, so let's take that UV scale here and duplicate it. Let's call this sidewalls UV scale. And let's put that above the override material so everything is consistent, UV scale and material. And there's one other element I'm going to add here. If you remember, we set the sidewall thickness, but we set it to a default of 20 and we didn't provide an ability to change that. So let's duplicate this UV scale here, and I'm going to call this sidewall thickness, and I'll put that just after the sidewalls boolean. And let's do a compile. Everything's okay, and go to your sidewall thickness and set the amount there to 20, which is what we set in the last episode. Sidewalls UV scale, I have no idea at the moment, so we'll leave that at 600. That might be way too large a number, but we'll find that out. So now compile and save, and we've finished adding all the parameters to our spline wall. So now what we'll do is we will go through our geometry scripts one by one and override the material as necessary. So close this down, open up the, let's start off with the GS room stairs, find the section where you are doing the materials, and at the moment we've got this assigning the material from the spline wall mesh. So we want to see if there is an override material and apply that if that's the case. So we just need to create a little bit of space here. Let's move these along a tiny bit. Let's move that along a tiny bit. And then what we want to do is we want to drag in our spline wall reference. get the staircase override material. And if you right click, change that to a validated get, and we will connect this here. So if we do have a staircase override material, then let's actually duplicate this here. So we've got two paths. So if we do have a staircase override material, then we want to set that. If we don't have a staircase override material, we want to set it to the wall mesh. And then once we've done that, we'll then carry on as normal here. So let's quickly test this out and see if this works. Compile and save. At the moment there's no change. So that in itself is good, because that means it's setting the stair to a wall mesh by default if there's no wall override material, so staircase override material set. So let's go down to the staircase section, and in our override material, select any material you want. If you've got the starter content installed, there's a few materials in there. So if I do, in fact, let's just add the starter content so we've got a few materials to play with. So to do that, just go add feature or content pack somewhere here, content, starter content, add to project, just so I've got some elements there I can use. Okay, now let's go back to that staircase override material here, and if I type in tile, I could do something like these concrete tiles, and you can see that the staircase has now got a tiled floor to it, and I could change the UV scale of that as well if I needed to. So if I change that, you can see that it's made the tiles twice as dense, or you can have large floor tiles. Okay, so that's good for the first one. Let's go back to the room stairs, and let's actually just copy this section, because we're going to do the same thing in the other two geometry scripts. So select these 4 nodes here, do Control C, shut that down. Now let's do the side walls. So go to the GS stair walls, find the same section here. Let's delete what we've got there at the moment, add a little bit of extra space, and then we should be able to paste with Control V in here. So the only difference here is we've got a different override material. So if you delete the staircase override material, here we'll get the side wall override material. And again, right click, convert to a validated get, and let's just connect everything up. So if it is valid, we'll set the sidewall override material. If it's not valid, we'll set the regular wall mesh material. And don't forget to connect up the outgoing pin as well. The one other thing I want to do here before I compile, we've now got a proper UV scale for our sidewalls. So let's delete the one that we were using and get sidewall UV scale. That means we can adjust the tiling separately from the staircase and roof. And let's do compile and save. Let's go back here. You can see actually straight away that the UV scale changed. So that will depend on your material. So let's select a material first. Let's go to sidewalls override material. And if I do something like concrete, let's do concrete grime, and go in a little bit closer, you can see that it's a sort of a grimy, plastery wall. The tiling seems a little bit on the large side, so let's play around with the scale here. put it down to 200, 100. So that looks probably a little bit more to scale, but you can see I now have control over the tiling as well as the material. Okay, we're almost there. We're just going to update the roof override material. So let's do a quick save. Shut down the GS stair walls and open up our final geometry script, which is the geometry script roof. And here we will go to the same section. So somewhere in here, we're doing the materials. Let's see if I can find it. It's in the first section here. So let's just delete what we've got there at the moment. Move the node along. Should be able to Control V again because I haven't done any other copying. And again, we just want to make sure we get the right override material. So I'm deleting the one that's there. And let's now get roof override material. Convert to validated get. And let's connect everything up. If it's valid, we'll set that material. If it's invalid, we'll set it to the wall mesh material, and then we need to connect these two to the other elements there. So do a compile and save. And I may have, in the last one, I may have forgotten to select this path here. So let's double check that, but we've got one more thing to do anyway. So let's compile and save, come out here, and now we will go to the roof override material. And if you type in walnut, you've got a nice polished or worn walnut floor. Let's try the worn one. And you can see that's a nice tiled or sort of plank-based wood surface. And you can see it's got a nice bit of specularity on it with a few scuff marks there. And again, we should be able to change the scale of this. So let's see what happens if we change the roof scale. That's a bit finer. Let's do half what we had before. Yeah, so now we've got larger floorboards there. That looks pretty good. So now we've got total flexibility over the room. We've got the wall meshes with their own materials, and now our staircase, sidewalls and roof can all have their own material. Anyway, there's one last thing I need to do. In the walls, do you remember we set that wall thickness variable, but we haven't plugged it in yet. So let's just remove the roof temporarily so we can see the walls thickness. And if we go back to the open up the GS stair walls geometry script, and we need to find the, actually let's just see if we did make that mistake. Yeah, so you can see here that if I overrid the material, I didn't then do the set collision here. So you'd have been scratching your head wondering why the collision didn't work if it had an override material. So make sure you've connected the set material here so that it carries on and does the final two parts. And what we need to do is we need to find, over in your functions, you need to find your create wall function. And you see here it has the wall thickness plugged in, but this wall thickness is just set in this geometry script. So we want to override that. So drag in your spline wall, do get wall sidewall thickness, and plug that into the dimension Y. And might have to just create a little bit of extra space for that. And compile and save. There shouldn't be any change because we set the wall thickness in the spline wall to 20, which is what it was, but we should now be able to adjust it. So if I go to the roof thickness, actually it's 30 here. Let's see what happens if we set it to 50. Oh, sorry, that's roof thickness. I'm changing the wrong parameter here. Let's go down to the staircase side wall thickness. That was 20. So let's change that to 50. And you can see that the walls adjust automatically. It's interesting, they are overlapping here. That means that I haven't changed everything. And I remembered that I did a calculation when I was working out where to put the sidewalls. It was the step width plus half the wall thickness. So I probably forgot to adjust the wall thickness there as well. So this is part of your iteration of coding, testing, and then seeing bugs and fixing them. So let's go back to the stair walls. And if you look at the beginning of this function, create wall, you can see that I'm doing wall thickness divided by 2. But I want to use the wall thickness from the spline wall. So let's delete that. Drag off the spline wall that we've already got up here. And you can do get wall thickness. And then plug that into the divide. So we're dividing the spline wall thickness or the spline wall parameter by 2. And now, if I go back here, you can see that it is adjusted correctly. So it's now butting up exactly to the wall. And let's just do a really thick wall as a final test. Let's make it 100. And that's all perfect. So I'll put it back to 20. And we are all finished. So this, as I said, this is a nice quick tutorial compared to the last 2 we've done. I'll stick the roof back on. I'll do a quick run around to see if everything's okay. So, yep, now I have the different materials here. I've got the sort of concrete, grimy concrete on the side. I've got tiled walls, tiled staircase, and then at the top I've got this nice polished walnut floor with a few scuff marks. So I'll be back with the next one soon. Stay subscribed, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.